in a different way. And what he's saying is that um, he talks about the theory. He makes a hypothesis, and he's talking about fluctuations in market, and he explains how the psychology of the market gets into a feedback loop. It self-feeding loop. It's a, like Herbert Simon said it's a self-reproducing system. So social psychology gets into an automatic self-feeding loop, and it starts to grow. It starts to grow a bubble and a larger bubble and a larger bubble, and that is how crisis becomes cyclical, because society gets into a larger euphoria, and then a society comes into a larger panic. So he explains how human beings think. We love to listen to stories, and how the historical perspective about baby boomers, and what should the society do, and of course various other various other connections between price earning. He looks at some fundamental data, and he explains that if you draw a 10-year price earning of the market, and if you are buying the lowest price earning, and if you are or if you're buying the highest price earning, and then how does the profitability of your performance change? So they say and he also talks another interesting thing about earnings, which says that if the earning goes up 10%, the stock market doesn't rise in an equivalent way. That means if the real valuation has to be believed, then if earning grows 10%, then the stock price should go 10%, maybe some valuation above the 10%. But he says that markets behave very crazy, because a 10% increase in earning can lead to a 20% increase in earning, and a 15% increase in earning can lead to a 100% rise in stock market prices. So he said the rise in stock market prices and the real earning, the real profitability of the company, the connection is not equivalent. So he says that this is a very fluctuating behavior between what the stock market does and what the companies in the stock market are actually creating a profit. So he's saying there is a lot of sentiment in the stock market which is unexplainable. So this is one of his broader ideas in the book which he wrote in 1981, where he explained that uh, the fluctuations in the stock markets are not cannot be explained by the fundamental or the market being efficient theory. That market is efficient, there is a value, market has to move around that value, it can go above that value and it can come back to that value. This is the efficient market hypothesis, which is that markets are efficient, and which he proved in 1981 that the fluctuations in the real prices are much different, or um, much larger than what the efficient market proves, or efficient market hypothesizes. 1981, this is what he wrote in the paper, and he drew the actual valuation line, which was the earning line in the black, and he constructed it from 1860, and he said if this was the real value, the black line, then it is very tough to explain how the stock markets actually move. The stock markets were the red one. The stock markets move much higher than the value and much lower than the value, much higher than the value and lower than the value. And he said these are very large fluctuations, and which proves that markets are not efficient. And in 1981 he talked about it, and you can imagine that 2002 behavioral finance got an award, and got the award, and it was 20 years of work before all this movement of behavioral finance happened, and trying to prove that markets are not efficient. And today it's a proved, it is proved, which does not need to be proved anymore. Markets are not efficient, and um, which has been proved in New York Stock Exchange prices. It is not about the local market, it is worldwide. It is mathematically proved that markets are inefficient. Markets are more sentimental than they are fundamental. So this was the work that he did. He quotes a very interesting work in his a book in his work in 1981 paper, which was by Charles Mackay, and Charles Mackay, 1840s, and he was the one who wrote this book. And I just finished this book. This is an additional note that I put today in the slides, and uh, I wanted to read this book because Schiller mentioned about it, and Schiller tried to explain market sentiment, fluctuation based on somewhere what Mackay said. And Charles Mackay basically takes the reader through an amazing history of 1600s, 1500s, where he says that how the it was so easy to influence the masses. It's of course very easy to influence even now, and till the time there will be human nature, there'll be always an influencing that will happen. There'll always be a leader. There'll be always be influencing. There'll be always be herding. Whether the influencing has moved from a prophet or a guru or a thinker or a priest to the stock market. Now, the stock market is the one which is influencing, and people are following that stock market. Whether it is no more a human figure, but influencing or herding is a very nature of humanity. So he takes us through 1500s, how they were the last crusades, and there was a religious war being waged, and how people left their houses, their families, and their their loved ones to wage the war of religion, of belief, and how and all these things about how the people were influenced, and how uh, thousands and thousands of people died, and wars happened just because of uh, the the illusion that it was going to bring good to them, or it was not about um, I'm not really talking about the goodness or worse part of it, but I'm saying about the influencing, or the masses uh, being managed, is what is the delusion the book speaks about. So he speaks about many areas. He speaks about the witch mania also, which was going on from 1500 and still 1750, 1750s, which was basically the time Adam Smith was uh, Adam Smith was basically writing about the so about macroeconomics, and that was the time. 750 was also still the time witch mania was happening, and there was hardly, in the peak of witch mania, there was hardly any family which could have escaped, where people of family members were being arrested anyone anytime. And the quote from the book says that the lying whimsies of a few sick children, encouraged by foolish parents and drawn out of superstitious neighbors, were sufficient to set a country in flame. So it was crazy, and I was shocked when I read that book. I didn't expect it to be so intense, and it was really controlling the masses, and how the masses, when they start believing that somebody was a witch, or some person had a witch influence, were basically burning them alive. And thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people died because of the witch mania. Now times are different, and we are celebrating films, the Twilight Paradox, and uh, we are we are talking about True Blood on HBO, and how the times change, how it becomes a kind of entertainment now. What was a pain and a misery in just 100, 250 years back, or 300 years back. So there were a lot of ideas he talks about, and this was the this is the poster from the Twilight series, which I thought I'll highlight. And there was another interesting film that I saw, uh, the the Goya's Ghosts, which was about the painter Goya, and how this was in his time when the witch mania used to happen, and it was kind of it was I could relate back to this film I saw. I did not relate it back till the time I read the book, and when I read the book, I realized that it was not just a film. It was such relevant time for 200-300 years, maybe about basically from 1500s. So it was a long time for 250 years. If innocent people were being just captured and burned just because they were believed to be under the influence, and it was also lack of science because there was a lot of the science of was poor, and people were very concerned about health issues. There were epidemics and diseases which were not understood, so people thought there was a witch effect. Of course, science played a big role in terms of understanding why a certain person behaved like fits and things. But very interesting book, and which I would strongly suggest to read. This is Charles Macaw, 1814, born in 1814, died in 1889, and he, of course, was very much near the time that these things were happened. So, being intrigued by the aspect, he did an amazing job with the book. And of course, delusions don't get over just because of time change. Maybe we are not burning witches anymore, and we are not slow. We are not suffering from slow poisons and and haunted houses and things. But even now, these are very recent experiments which say that how manipulatable are people, how influenceable are people when it comes to standing against the group. This was the Solomon Ash experiment, which they were they one person was under experiment, and rest of them were actors, and the actors were um, told that you will be shown different sizes or length of lines, and you have to say that the length of lines are the same. And so the first actor went inside the experiment room, and he came out and he said that this is what they are showing. They are showing a set of lines, and the lines are of the same length, but uh, uh, but they want that is what you have to tell them, and because they are showing a similar length line. So all the actors go in and go out, and the one who's supposed to be influenced gets so influenced that he goes inside and says, yes, yes, the lines are of the same length. So this is the kind of influence that a group has on an individual's psychology. So, and this is how we are designed. We are designed to not be a contrarian. We are designed to be with the group. We are designed to be influenced. And this is a bias. How to be not be influenced, how to be objective is a very hard task. This was one experiment. Then there was another experiment by Stanley Milgram of Yale, who there was an examiner E, and then there was a the E was the experimenter, the T was the teacher, and L was the learner. So the experimenter was telling the teacher to give shocks to the learner, and the learner was the actor. So the just because experimenter was supposed to know what is right, the teacher kept on giving shocks to the learner, where the learner was saying, I'm dying and don't kill me. But because the experimenter said, I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing right thing, and I'm the authority, and what I tell you is right, you have to do it. And the teacher continuously gave extreme shocks to the learner, and the learner was acting, I'm dying, I'm dying.